Shall we start?
Hello, Mr. Sayasat Nurbek.
Yes,
Good
sure.
evening.
Good evening. Good evening. Sure.
Good evening.
Good evening, dear everybody, dear guests, dear KMAP University, dear KMAP community. Welcome to Global Leadership Forum, the program devoted to the enhancement of globally oriented leadership capabilities of KMAP University and larger community through world-known leaders talks.
And we are very proud to have as a guest Mr. Sayasat Nurbek, who is one of the prominent national level experts on education, labor market analysis and policies in Kazakhstan. Mr. Sayasat Nurbek is the CEO and founder of BTS Education, one of the leading EdTech companies in the country, which is heavily investing in education. Mr. Nurbek is a multilingual public speaker, lecturer, educator with over 1,000 public lectures and talks, which include teaching and guest lecturing in the local and European universities. So let us welcome Mr. Sayasat Nurbek with a talk on Generation Z, employment megatrends. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's truly an honor to be present on your platform. And today, let me just switch on the presentation, and I need to make sure we have a new digital ethics code nowadays that everybody hears me, everybody can see the presentation. I just need to make sure. Yeah, I need a confirmation that my sound is okay. Yes, the presentation. Thank you for confirmation. So today I was asked to talk about the national project which has just completed. It was just finished last year, December last year, the Atlas of New Professions and Competencies of Kazakhstan, which is quite an interesting project. And I will try to give the general framework of the project and focus on a topic of today's conference, the new generation of employees, the changing values, the changing expectations, the changing human resource, HR policies and standards that employers will have to implement in order to meet these changing expectations of this new generation, which will be pouring out on labor market. So let me first start with big challenges that are happening nowadays, and we are witnessing the growing uncertainty. They've done an index on that. It's called the Global Uncertainty Index. I can watch it. It's quite an interesting thing. Every now and then I go out and walk and look at this particular index. It shows the fluctuation. It shows this huge amplitude of uncertainty which is happening right now. And there's a separate section on labor markets, on policy and political, economical, social factors. And I really focus on labor market. And labor market is now, changing radically. There are huge radical changes, challenges which are truly global. And you wouldn't find any single government or international organization or big consulting companies or NGOs, global NGOs, international NGOs that are not interested in forecasting and closely monitoring the changes on labor market. Starting from World Economic Forum to World Bank Group, the International Labor Organization, you have the big four, big three, these huge consulting companies. They have a separate team, a separate unit, or separate researchers or indexes, that closely monitor the changes. And you would see tons and tons of these reports, future of jobs, future skills, the future of of the labor market. And a lot of countries are really looking into how and why these big and radical changes are happening in the labor market. Here is just the slide indicating the big global challenges and risks done by BCG, Boston Consulting Group. And they look, their framework research methodology is quite close to what we've been doing in our Atlas project, is look at these big megatrends, big forces, factors that will shape, that will change radically, technological, organizational processes that will eventually lead to changing skills and competency frameworks. And basically, if you look at the labor market, you'd see all the professions and existing skills would be divided into 3 categories. You could really, kind of form them into 3 categories: the new skills and competencies, the emerging skills, something, a new demand which is mostly caused by technological change, digital transformation, automation, robotics, the algorithms. The transforming, when you have existing profession and existing skills, but then this technological change is bringing new demands and new skill requirements for existing professionals. And the closest example would be teachers. I mean, the abrupt, unprepared shift to distant learning, which happened last year, put this radically new demands to existing teachers' corps throughout the planet. I mean, in hundreds of nations had to face the fact that teachers were becoming the bottleneck. And it happened in many countries, including Kazakhstan, including our region, when teachers are now facing completely new demands caused by this abrupt and unprepared, in most of the cases, shift to distant learning. And when last year, end of the last year, a lot of ministries of educations in many countries were thinking, okay, this quarantine thing, the COVID pandemic will just, stop, will decline. Well, we'll go back to offline teaching. We'll forget this whole mess which was happening as a bad nightmare. It didn't happen. It goes on, and nobody knows where it's going to stop. And there's a second wave and third wave, and schools bouncing back and forth, offline to online. And it's now becoming a reality that the hundreds of thousands and millions of teachers around the world and professors will have to retrain themselves and be ready to transform. The teaching profession is truly transforming, is under a very deep and radical transformation. And disappearing, the third group, the unwanted people, or the retiring professions. And I have to make a disclaimer here: when we talk about disappearing or dying professions, they don't really die off. It's really difficult to imagine a certain profession just to die off completely, although it happened in human history, especially in recent 200 years with this rapid technological change. But when we say dying or disappearing professions or retiring professions, we're talking about the critical decline in demand. When the demand is so critically low, it doesn't really make sense to run new curricula or have official programs, accredited programs to train many professionals, because the demand is becoming critically low. And there are a lot of phenomena happening on labor market nowadays, which we haven't been seeing in many decades. And one of the phenomena we've been really seeing happening is that the life cycle of professions is becoming very short. I mean, if you look back, you would see certain professions like appearing on labor market, being born, then growing, and the demand for them would grow, and then they would reach their maturity, the peak of their demand, and then with time they will just go off the labor market with decline and then disappearing or retiring professions. And it would take decades. It would take sometimes centuries. But nowadays, the span, the lifespan of certain professions might take 5 to 10 years. I mean, they will just really quickly emerge on the market, boom, become very popular. There'll be huge demand for them. You know, a lot of courses, training, retraining, social media specialists, SMM, marketing, the social media marketing. It's a good example of this. I mean, they just appeared on, if you take our local market 5-7 years ago, and boom, become very popular. So many training, retraining, certificate programs, boom. Every company just wanted to have their own social media marketers, right? But now nobody's really sure. Because yes, it's getting to its peak, but will be something new would emerge, or something, a platform would change, and there's a certain uncertainty with the future of this, with the perspective of this profession. So, and then this is a good example of this strange phenomena which are now happening in the labor market. Now, getting back to our particular research, the idea of forecasting the labor market change, the changing landscape of labor market, it's been quite a while a big concern for many organizations. And one of the basic framework research approach was adopted back in 2008. Let me see what is actually in tourism market. Okay, back in 2008, when ILO, International Labor Organization, they had a special unit, a department which would be dealing with these rapid changes. And in 2008, they've come up with recommendations, recommendation framework. If someone is interested in methodology, I would be happy to provide all the basic underlying documents for this research framework. The basic recommendations, 2008, 2010 in Toronto, the G20 summit. The ILO was presented to the G20 training strategy, then in Pittsburgh summit 2009 when they first announced. And so there was some, at least 10 to 15 year work of methodology work involved. And in 2010, the Agency for Strategic Initiatives, 2012, I'm sorry, and the Skolkovo School, Moscow Management School, they've come up with a basic framework called the Skills Technology Foresight, STF, which is quite interesting approach. And I have full methodology guidebooks. If someone is interested, I'll be happy to provide them as well. So we've looked into about more than 10 national and corporate frameworks. How do we really forecast what will change on labor market? There's a great program run by Singaporean government, for example, the Future Skills. There's a replica of that program in UAE, United Arab Emirates, called Dubai Skills, started by Sheikh Mohammed. There's an interesting research, quite interesting. It's very frequently quoted, done by Oxford University for the UK government. 2 waves, 2013, 2017. But all of these researches are very quantitative. And given the labor statistics in our country, we were really shaky. We said, well, if we take this basic approach, basic framework, we will have a lot of problems gathering data, clearing data, because the labor statistics, data analysis, it's one of the weak spots given Kazakh, the local labor market. So we went to the source. We went to ILO. We met this particular department, the forecasting department, and we talked to them and said, look, we're looking through all these different frameworks. Can you help us out? So we said, okay. Here is the framework we really love. It's quite fancy. It's very simple. It's quantitative, not qualitative. It's qualitative, not quantitative. And it's guys, your neighbors, it's Russian guys who developed it, the Skolkovo School. It will be much easier for you to communicate. So we went to Skolkovo, and we had a partnership with them. So we were being retrained and certified by this particular methodology. But then we adopted and validated it in Kazakhstan. So in a nutshell, the STF, it identifies all the different trends, mostly technology trends, but then all kinds of trends, social trends, culture trends, economic trends, political trends if needed. and it looks how these trends how these trends affect the workplace, the job place, how they affect the technological processes in certain industry or certain plant or big enterprise, how they affect the organizational, managerial processes. And through their specific foresight methodology, they're able to identify these changes, and then they're able to define in a more detail what new skills, what new demands will emerge, and which skills and competency frameworks will eventually undergo change, transform, and which certain skills and the competency frameworks will eventually die off, disappear. So basically, I mean, if again, I don't want to spend much time, I'm going to jump straight to the results. But if anyone is really interested, I would be happy to continue have a discussion, because methodology is quite interesting. We had a lot of fun, doing several pilot projects before we launched big national research. So we had a pilot project in Donskoy mining plant. It's one of the largest and one of the oldest industrial enterprises in Kazakhstan, in Aktobe region, about almost 7,000 employees. This big mining enterprise, and we had a big pilot project with them. So then we approached the government and we said, look, we have this robust methodology, we validated it, we adopted it to Kazakh economy. So let's do it. We need support of Ministry of Labor, we need support of Ministry of Education, and we're ready to do with this nationwide research and see and provide you with really tailored, in-depth forecast of how and what is going to change in certain industries in 5-10 years time. It's a pity we made a mistake. I should have persisted. I should have forced the Prime Minister when we made this big research proposal. He said, "Look, I'm interested. We need this, but let's do it for 9 priority sectors of economy." And here they are: mining, oil and gas, agriculture, transportation, IT and telecom, the machinery, tourism, energy, construction, building materials. And there are much, we're missing for many other, like the textile, we're missing many other sectors of economy: social, education, healthcare, the digital economy, the creative economy. But this year we're starting second wave of research. So these 9 are done, completed. We had a very in-depth and very thorough research. About 2,000 experts, more than 2,000 experts, industrial experts, were involved in the research. So we went really deep down. We talked to chief engineers. We talked to leading experts in these big companies in oil and gas and machinery and agriculture and tourism. We had the owners and CEOs of top companies, leading companies. So we've come to define to the script in very detailed description. We were able to provide a very detailed description of 463 professions, 239 of new professions, emerging professions, and 95 transforming professions, existing but undergoing transformation, and 129 disappearing, declining professions, dying professions. And each divided, in these 9 industries. And it's quite interesting. It's not only a forecast, but it's also very thorough, very in-depth research, a look at this particular industry. So we take an industry, let's say oil and gas industry, and we look at all the big forces, big trends, megatrends that are affecting this industry. International ones, the overall big technological changes, consumer behavior changes. So let's say digitization, automation in oil and gas industry, it's quite rapid and quite thorough. Digital technologies are really reshaping a lot of these industries. The long-term capital investments are not on table anymore. The investors are really shaky. They don't want to spend too much money. So the amount of proven reserves is really declining. So basically, the oil and gas industry is trying to consume existing oil fields, you wouldn't hear in the last 10, 15 years, you wouldn't hear, oh, that new build, big exploration oil field. The Kashagan is a good example of that, a cash all gone, they say about it. So the investors are really conservative now. Nobody wants to, they want to, just let's finish what we have right now and then think about the future later on. Yeah, environmental requirements, the green and environmental protection requirements, demands are becoming a big thing in industries, in a lot of industries. And the smart and targeted consumption that we've seen change in consumer behavior, which is part of our conversation today, and requirements of new generation of employees, different generation. It is really affecting the way big companies now organize their production, their HR policies, HR standards. That's where we're gonna spend some time talking about. So I would love to talk about these different trends, right? And we had this huge, for each industry, we have these maps of all the trends we were able to identify that affect. This is an example of mining industry, and we take every single big technological factor change that might affect this industry. We put them on a time frame. We try to calculate the force, the amount or the degree of effect that this megatrend, this trend will be pushing the industry, changing the basic processes, changing the technologies, changing the way companies operate in this particular industry. So that'll be quite interesting for someone who's interested, for like CEOs of companies who operate, or the service companies who deal with this particular industry, because he would see a map of, okay, this is how in the next 5-10 years, this particular industry in Kazakhstan is going to change. This is the forces that are pushing the change. This is the forces that are shaping this change in new demands and skills. So let's have a closer look at this fifth megatrend, the requirements of new generation. Just to finish the thought, this is how we structure it. Then oil and gas industry, once we have a very detailed vision of how this particular particular trend will change, we were now seeing which new demands will emerge in that industry. So let's say enhanced oil recovery. As I said, many major players in oil and gas, they don't want to go for new production or new exploration. They want to focus on what they have. They want to take out, they want to deplete the existing oil fields. They want to focus on oil recovery. They want to get as much as they can, because nobody is the big capital investments, big new oil fields and exploration. It's not on the table anymore. Deserted fields or humanless fields. Automation has reached its peak in oil and gas industry. So there'll be, like, you had huge oil field 10, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, it would have been operated by tens of thousands of employees. Now it's several hundreds of them. The automation, the telemetric systems, they reached to its peak in certain technological processes. So a lot of AI, a lot of machine learning, a lot of IT data, information technology regulated systems is pushing it's creating new demands in oil and gas industry. Petrochemicals, predictive analytics, and let me just give you one concrete example of a new profession that is emerging in oil and gas, but not only in oil and gas, in machinery, in mining, for example. So as I said, there's a big new war to cut the expenditures, war to cut the expenses. A lot of countries, a lot of companies, leading companies in these particular industries, they now identified that the major source of large expenses, in particular in oil and gas industries, is the repair works, the technical, the maintenance and repairs. They take a lot of time, they take a lot of resources, and basically the repair teams, they work in blind. They come, something happened, the equipment is broken, they come, they started the repair works, they start maintenance, monitoring, and boom, okay, they found it. In the meantime, everything is stopped, and this is the huge source of inefficiency and huge source of financial ineffectiveness. So now a lot of these companies are starting this particular process called the cyborgization of their equipment. So even outdated equipment is equipped with these chips that can relay information, that can give the status update. And a lot of data is gathered now, and they're harvesting a lot of data. So there's a particular need for this guy who would come in handy, the equipment reliability and predictive analytics engineer. Who is this guy? And I'm just giving an example that our particular research is not just the Foresight of futurology reports, which is like, you'd have lots of these reports, like in 50 years time, which he changes. And it's very, general depiction of what's going to happen. It's a very superficial reflection. We went really deep down to the core industries, and we really went deep down, and we were able to predict, not only predict, to depict this particular new engineer, this particular new type of employee, what are his skill sets, which processes he will be immersed into, what are his core responsibilities and competencies. This is just a brief description. In a while, I'm going to show you the full description. You'll see that it's quite detailed understanding for industrial understanding of this new employee. So basically, this engineer, a predictive analytics engineer, is someone who would be responsible in gathering, storing, and analyzing all these data harvested from different types of equipment, from all kinds of different equipment and aggregates and technologies involved in oil and gas industry. And his primary responsibilities are first analyzing all this data and scheduling and giving time, the planning time of this repair brigades, repair teams, maintenance and repair teams, because they don't have to work, they have to work in advance. He has to predict predictive analytics. He has to provide them with predictive analytics, which particular equipment is reaching the red level, which is about to break. His primary responsibility is to predict and avoid the emergency situations. His second responsibility is working with supply teams, with procurement teams, to see and analyze which spare parts broke more frequently. He gives them full picture of the equipment. And in certain companies, they already have this kind of people. In the big companies like Chevron, Schlumberger, the leading, they already have people who analyze data. They have data engineers, data analysts. But this particular trend is now becoming a mainstream demand for the industry. So we were able to give him a full description. And he's working, of course, with financial and investment teams on giving recommendations, which parts of equipment, which parts of industrial chain should be replaced, because the repairing, buying of spare parts, the maintenance is costing too much to the company. And so we are able to give this particular descriptions to these hundreds of professions and skill sets in these 9 industries, transforming what is transforming, which new skills he needs to train or retrain or upskill in order to become more efficient, and which competency frameworks and professions and employees are really in decline, and they should be automated or replaced with time, and which we could show you when this trend is becoming the mainstream. Now back to this new generation. We have first chemical profession that has only 5-10 year lifespan. A profession isn't simply an application of some long-standing professional intermittent challenge. Ayzat is asking quite interesting. I'll try to just really quickly, if the question is quick, to answer. Yes and no. Yes, the short lifespan things, sometimes they're not professions, they're skills, they are specific competencies that are most frequently attached to certain platform or certain technology which is emerging. If you can use this technology and you do some business tasks using that platform and technology, and then technology changes and platform changes, you have to retrain or upskill. Yes, but sometimes, and it's quite interesting, you would see a profession which kind of more or less falls into definition of profession, which becomes very popular for a moment, and then it just, you have to retrain or find yourself a new field of application. But most of the times, you're right, Aizat, it's most of the times it's a very specific skill, it's very specific competency which is attached to technology platform, which is now goes outdated, and then your skill goes outdated with it. So now let me just get back to your Q&A once I'm finished. I'm about to finish right now. So first, the new generations, this new generational impact on labor market has two major ways of impacting. First, requirements. So this new generation, they have different requirements, different demands for their environment, for industrial environment, corporate environment, or urban environment. Most, like in oil and gas, we've seen it a lot in oil and gas and mining sectors. I'll give you one concrete example of Eurasian Resources Group, the Gazprom, one of the biggest, largest mining corporations. So once they had certain fields, mining fields, which are being depleted. Kazakhstan would be a great example. Kazakhstan, let me just put Kazakhstan. So Zhezkazgan and Satpayev, this very traditional copper mining fields in Karaganda region in central Kazakhstan, they're now depleting. So the first exploration started back in the 60s. Kanar Satpayev, the famous academician, scientist, and researcher, he was the one, Satpayev, he was named, the city near Zhezkazgan that was named after him. So now these mine fields are really depleting, and there are thousands of families who are going out of jobs. So we have to replace them. We have to give them new jobs. But the families are not ready to move out of Zhezkazgan. So they're now moving hundreds of thousands of employees to Aktobe region, to Balkhash region, just to provide them jobs for their existing mining fields. But they're not ready to move with their families. They're not ready to and you say, no, I'm going to stay here. You're going to provide me the job, but I'm not ready to take my family and move to Aktobe region. So now they're working in shifts, just like in oil and gas. They have shifts. The Vachta regime for maybe spend about 20, 30 days in Aktobe and give 1 month off, 1 month. And so there's a funny thing with it. I was in Aktobe region doing my research in Donskoy mining. And so we had a meeting with local employees, local miners in Aktobe region. We went to the restaurant, and they looked at me very suspiciously. I said, "Where are you from, Sayasat?" I said, "Well, I'm from Nur Sultan, but where are you from originally?" "I'm from Semey, east of Kazakhstan." And then they felt relieved. I said, "What's going on?" "We thought you were from Karaganda, and we hate people from Karaganda because we take our jobs." It was very much like, when you go to a small mining town, and they in America, like a town in America, and they go, "Are you Mexican? We hate Mexicans." They come here illegally, take our jobs. It was the very same comments, like, whoa. So you would see, there's a new requirement. So companies will have to, earlier in the days, they just, they would build a city, they would bring tens of thousands of families there, and, like this small mono cities, mono towns we have, Rudny. Oh, the Donskoy Gok is in Chromtau. That's a small city town established, it's particular for this mine. It was very widespread practice back in Soviet Union. So we have dozens of these small mono towns, mono cities created around big mining towns, big mining field or big exploration. But now it's changing, and people don't want to move out. And second big is for possibilities for more employee involvement. They don't want to be pieces of machine. They want more, more freedom, more autonomy. They want to have different HR policies. And a great example here would be the training. The training programs, you can't have, traditional, most of the companies now struggling to go to the new training programs. There was a great piece of news with the Gazprom company. They've had new VR, AR assisted training center for their truck drivers. You would say, well, why would they need these big trucks, mining trucks, huge 150, 70 tons trucks? Why do you need AR, VR? Why do you need to invest so much money in creating this big, training facilities? But they have to. And on old days, they would just had a truck, an experienced driver and a newbie. They would put him in like fresh blood, just watch me and do it as I say, right? But now they have to, do it at a more individual scale. They have to do it, we have to train people without going to training sites. There's a new there are new demands for upskilling and reskilling. And of course, the technology is driven. The Gazprom, for example, they have now distantly operated trucks, for example, Komatsu. I've seen it with my own eyes, and there's a funny story with it. So they had this experimental truck, which was driverless, so it's an autonomous truck, which was running from, bringing this materials from one place to another. And first day it stuck. So there was a huge scandal. Wow, what happened? We spent so much money buying this Komatsu truck, very advanced, driverless, autonomous. They had a huge committee coming down. It was funny. So it was run by an algorithm. Yeah, they tried to do it, and now we have operators, but they tried to do it with algorithm. It was so simple. The problem with algorithm was that it was using the exact same route every day and every hour. So, the roads in most of these industrial sites, they're not paved. It's just the groundwork, and no pavement, not stone crushed, reinforced road. It's just a simple soil road. So after, imagine this heavily loaded truck, this muddy road, it made, it gets stuck because it was using exact same route. So they had to change it. So now they had people operating it so it can, go like this, just not to make this, not to, how do you call it? Shit. The trucks, the Kalia. So you got the idea, I'm sorry. So now it was quite funny story. The requirements, for example, this new employee, so to speak, they have quite different new demands for creative spaces, for example, and territories. It's just not like job and work and sleep territory. We want to have some creative spaces, leisure facilities, the working conditions. The safety is becoming quite an important issue. And increased comfort. So like back in the days, you would have these, mining workers in this, very dirty uniforms, mud on their faces, not protected. But now you have, respirators, you have masks, you have very clean and very safe uniforms and things like that. So good lighting, cleanliness, industrial co-working. And the requirements are really increasing, and there's a special section in the atlases where you could see what are demands, the exact demands in certain industries. Like in mining industry, for example, we had a lot of sessions with these young workers, and they were very proactive, and it was so funny to see the reaction of their CEOs. So we had a special session. We had CEO, we have chief engineers, chief safety engineer, and we had this group of 200 plus young workers who've been working in this big mining corporation for less than 6 months. So there's a very fresh look of a newbie coming to an industrial company. and working with different safety regulations. And the specific question is, are you happy with safety regulations? Is there anything you could change? And there were tons of proposals, and this CEO and safety engineer said, oh, look, so you're buying these shoes, right? And these shoes are made of really bad resin. So when it's cold outside, they're becoming, they freeze and become very, very slippery. And boom, 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 we had 60 cases when people broke their bones, da, 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 da. Look, I was shocked, and the CEO and safety engineer was shocked, but how that this particular issue, the safety equipment, was bringing so much attention to these young workers. And they were very, very aggressive about that. And they had a lot of proposals on how to buy, which safety equipment should be replaced, and they did their own research. They said, "Oh, look, I went to the to the website and I found this, and this particular safety equipment would be much better suited for our regional, for this particular industry side than because you having this very centralized procurement standards. No, they should be divided by certain regions regarding the temperature, blah, 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 blah." And we spent about 2-3 hours. There was this particular session on safety equipment, and the CEO and safety engineer were like, okay, please. So that shows that the requirements are really different, and they're much, much higher than they used to be. And the Atlas gives you, if you are interested in this particular issue, the Atlas would give you industry by industry insight on these growing requirements. And if you take the second category, the second group of requirements, of changing requirements, is the proactivity, the different ways to have feedback on certain processes, to improve production. They want to they want to offer more creative, non-standard solutions. Digital tools is becoming quite an interesting thing. And there in Atlas, certain sections I'm going to show you as well, where we have input of these new workers, of these young workers who are coming up with a lot of offers, a lot of ways to improve the existing processes. And this proactive, the companies who can catch this feedback, who organize a lot of hackathons, who organize workshops, who have different activities to, they're going to catch this feedback. I really, they're doing a really good job because they are able to have a very active and even proactive feedback on a lot of industrial processes. So that's kind of an interesting new trend, a new wave of demands and requirements by this new generation of workers. And we can give you a lot of I'll send you a lot of links, a couple of links on these big new activities we organized with certain mining companies, where they had like this equipment reliability thing, the safety equipment thing we organized, and it gave a lot of insights to these CEOs and the people in charge of safety equipment or regulations, because tons of feedback in just 2-3 hours. Very concrete, not just like, oh, I don't like the shoes we're wearing. No, wait, look at the certain temperatures and these shoes that we should be looking at different models. And we actually, did our own research, and this particular model is more suited to our needs, and it costs us less than, the procurement, the central procurement unit is providing us, and things like that. And we are able, we would give you, in this particular slide, I'm giving you some examples of new skills, new professions described in our Atlas that actually fit into this new requirement thing. And well, I have to speed up a little bit because we're talking about 44 minutes. Let me just really go back to Q&A and really close. How can you use Atlas? And there are 3 major goals of Atlas. One is creating a forecast model for Ministry of Labor. But the qualitative forecast model is not there in Kazakhstan. So we are really helping Ministry of Labor to enforce reinforce their forecast model by giving the atlas results. The second big goal is to build a career guidance tool for schools, because professional orientation, professional guidance, career guidance is a big issue. The biggest problems on labor market, they accumulate for decades. They start in primary schools, they start in high school, when thousands and thousands of students are making wrong career choice, and we don't have any information on labor market. So we are now working with Ministry of Education to pilot these career guidance tools in Pavlodar region, in several schools, and we're hoping to take it as a national level tool. It can be used by companies, by universities, by colleges to identify new curricula, to upgrade their existing curricula and create new professional training, retraining, upskilling programs. And we're working really closely with Ministry of Education. Just today, earlier in the morning, I had a big session with 88 universities. And we were talking about pilot projects we'll be running in this year, this academic and next academic year. And of course, it could be used by companies, by industries to identify their gaps in skills, their skills gap. And we are now working with a lot of companies, mostly mining sector. I don't know, mining is quite active in identifying this new skills, new competency frameworks in upgrading their corporate training schemes. So enterprise level is going really good. And let me just quickly show you where you can find the results of the atlas. But here's just a few examples. We're starting a new program on unmanned aerial drones operators with Chromtau Mining College. We're starting a new experimental program on cybersecurity with Astana Polytechnic College, and 16 professions, new and transforming, are officially adopted in the strategy of Atra Oil and Gas University. I'm going to pass you the strategy. It's officially adopted strategy. So we're starting a new bachelor program on this predictive analytics engineer next year with Ministry of Energy and Atra Institute of University of Oil and Gas. So if you go to a website, yimbek.kz, here it is. Oops, sorry. Just last minute, and we're going to go to the questions screen. Here it is. Again, I want to make sure everybody sees the screen. Yeah? Okay, so if you go to yimbek.kz, I'm going to send you the link /atlas. You would find all the results of our research in 3 languages, Kazakh, Russian, and English. I'm going to go to English right away. And you can find like any industry, let's say mining industry, and you can go to mining industry and you can see the full picture of that industry. So you go mining and metallurgy, what are the trends, what's going on, the new changes, and let's find our personal protective, dynamic warehouses, equipment, supervisors, handling, premises, and IT dispatcher, machine learning, predictive equipment. Here we go. So there's a very brief description of this particular engineer, new employee, the education, which universities are preparing to start curricula or thinking about starting this curricula. One of the great perks of having so many partners involved, we can give you a full picture which companies are actually now in Kazakhstan looking for these kind of employees or started looking into predictive analytics. So we have a full picture of industry demand as well. And you can download a full, here it is. I'll give you tourism. It's in all 3 languages and in English as well. English, reports will be ready. We're finalizing them in about a week, max 2 weeks, and you'll be able to download them. The Russian ones are ready, Kazakh ones half ready, so you can download them already. We're really, laying translation. So here, I give you an example of tourism. 196 pages of very detailed information on tourism industry. What is changing? What are the changes? What is the tourism industry nowadays? What's the status? The key experts, the key tourist associations and experts, their in-depth interviews, their forecasts, the megatrends overview, the trends overview, what is changing, what will be changing, what are the new tourism trends and technologies that will be affecting and could be used to create new products and niches for tourism. And from this, we go into this detailed analysis, and we go out what skills and competencies. This is quite interesting. You could actually find an industrial competency framework for this particular industry, which will be very interesting for training and educational organizations. And then you have full list of new emerging skills, right? One by one, described one by one. Then you have full skill list of transforming professions, the dying off, and then you have a bonus of universities which are best suited to train this new. We did this big analysis for Ministry of Education as well, right? So here's the full picture. You could use it for many needs. It could be academic needs, it could be research needs. If you're in the industry, it'll give you very valuable information, where to start, what to upgrade. If you're an educational institution, it's a great way to upgrade your curricula or start new curricula. And if you are an educational institution, we are ready, our team is ready to provide you with methodological support to create this new curricula. So we've been writing this pilot programs curricula with several colleges and one big university in oil and gas. We'll be happy to share this new curricula and help you to build a curricula, because in the end, the major clients, so to speak, of our research is education. Because colleges and universities. Let's go back to questions, Q&A right now. Okay. Aidana, you said there are different indexes, and are there any tools that can anticipate the required skills range change in the next 5 to 10 years to decrease the unemployment of young graduates who finish their bachelor's in 4 years? Well, Aidana, I was talking about this tool, this very specific tool, Atlas, which gives you a very full picture of what is going to change in certain industry, why it is changing, and we give you a very detailed description. So Atlas is a tool that can help anticipate the required skill range. But if you say, I will give you, let me just start giving out, where's the link? Here we go. Let me just quickly send you the link. Here we go. Here's the website. Here's the website. Good evening. I would like to ask your opinion to automation period for chemical engineers. When do you think that refineries would no longer need lab technicians? Well, the refineries, we had a separate session with refineries. The automation has already started, but it's not that it would not require any lab technicians anymore. It's very heavily leaning on data nowadays. So lab technicians, they are now, they're more like not a dying profession, but a transforming profession. There's a growing heavy demand to their data science skills. data engineering, data science, machine learning skills. So now okay, you could go to Oil and Gas Atlas and find section for not refineries, but petrochemicals. There's a special section for petrochemicals. You would see there's this growing demand for data science. So my direct, most concise recommendation for you, lean on data science, because that's where the industry is going. So you could be a good chemist, you could be a good chemical engineer, but you need that data science arm to keep you on flow, because there's a growing demand. You take exploration, for example, geophysics, geologists. It's proof. It's almost, I don't know, more than 50% of it is all data science now. It's all about, you know, dealing with data sets. It's all about machine learning. It's all about you know, analyzing data, because it's heavily relying on data science now. What about other than natural resources extraction sectors? Well, the 9, as I mentioned, the 9 sectors are the mining, oil and gas, and these are why, I mean, we were like forced to do these sectors by the government of Kazakhstan, because they are the 9 priority sectors. But then there's agriculture, there's construction, there's tourism, there is IT and telecom. So you could go to the website and then you'd find all these sectors out there. As I said, the English versions of these complete the final reports are not ready yet. We're finalizing. There's a lot of editing done, and they will be uploaded in about 1-2 weeks. But the Russian, you could find them, they're all there. What would be the megatrends in the teaching professions and medical jobs? Will robots teach students online? What about the jobs that require human skills? Right. Well, teaching and healthcare, they will not be easily and really quickly automated. There is a lot of technology involved nowadays, especially with COVID and pandemic situation. What actually happened, the digital technologies, they've been paving their way in the last 20 years. But the last year, the COVID year, the pandemic year, which is now continuing, and a lot of people hoped, okay, we're done with 2020, 2021 will be different, will be easy. No way. The pandemic, the COVID, the Corona situation actually, you know, speeded up the process. It really pushed, it really forced this digital trend. And you look at it, look at all the companies which are becoming the top rich companies, the Amazon, the company, Zoom, you know, the capital market of Zoom is now more than all these big airline companies combined, and the founder of Zoom is now one of the richest persons in the world. They've been preparing for this big new shift, big new digital society model for decades, and now it's their time. It's beginning of this new digital era. So if you take the teachers, there are 3 major new requirements for teaching professions. Now, first, the content. And the content which teachers have been preparing for their classical face-to-face lectures is not enough. So the pedagogical design, you would be hearing this word, you know, more frequently nowadays. The pedagogical design, the content is very different. You have to construct the content in a very different way. It has to involve interactivity. It has to involve a lot of new ways of dealing with students which were not required by the old model. Number 2, the teaching methodology. So you can't teach the way you taught in a classroom. And because look, just like now, I'm struggling to deal with the audience. First of all, I don't know how many people, 146 people. I don't know who's watching, who is not watching. There's a huge disrupt in communication. There's a huge problem in communicating with the audience nowadays. And the brain, there are a lot of research conducted right now, because the brain is now overreacting, overdoing, overworking. If we had a physical lecture, I would be seeing the audience. My brain would receive much more detailed information, the emotions, the body language. What the heck is this guy talking about? Somebody would just walk out, and I would see him physically walking out. I'm not interested in showing his body language. It's a piece of crap, what the heck, fuck off. And my brain would have much more information. Now it's like I'm sitting in a room in my living room talking to myself, and a lot of emotional resources are spent, a lot of psychological, a lot of research on that. So now there's a new skill which is given to teachers, new demand or requirement to teachers and healthcare workers, because a lot of these want a distant way, is how to manage yourself, your emotional resources, your psychological resources, how to stay resourceful, how to deal with this new way of communicating. Hold on.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah. Sayasat? Yeah.
I lost track of questions.
Sayasat, would it be also possible to answer the question given in the chat? A very interesting question from Kamila Mirvanova. She's asking, like, in the view that some profession will never disappear, what kind of area you may recommend for us? So maybe about professions that will never disappear. So, and also had the globalization effect on the employment trends. The globalization effect on the employment trends.
Yeah. Okay. On which sectors I can give you really quick. I'll try to give you a really quick one. Or if you take the region in Kazakhstan, one, it's all about IT. The future is IT. It's information technology, and there are 3 specific fields in IT. There's a huge growing demand for this specific 3 group of professions. One is data science. It's becoming the mainstream already. You take the Kaspi Bank. There's this huge success story of Kaspi Bank based on their ability to work with data, analyze data. They have the biggest and strongest data analysts, the data engineers team now in the country, among the banks at least, among the financial institutions. About 800,000 people, all the best of the best, just go to because they have a lot of data to absorb and to analyze. And they become quite successful. And when we went to IPO, the Kaspi Bank was their market cap is now almost 14 billion. And they're not seeing as a financial institution, but they're seeing as a fintech company, as a technological platform, basically. So everything data scientists, data analysts, data engineers, machine learning specialists, AI, big data. It's a mainstream, so there'll be growing demand because all the other companies now, like banks, they look at Kaspi and say, how come they have huge market cap compared to us? Because we are a bigger bank, we have more reserves, we are much more stable. But this small bank its market cap is much bigger because of that data advantage, because of the digital technologies give them a bigger market value. So there'll be growing demand. Number 2, the cybersecurity. With digital comes the cybersecurity issues. Take again, Kaspi is a good example of that. If you remember last year, November was that, December, there was a glitch in their system, and it looked like life has ceased in Kazakhstan. The taxis. I was in Nur Sultan, and Yandex taxi. I was taxis. Oh, Kaspi is not working, man. Can you just send me money in the afternoon whenever their systems come back online? I had a glitch in my personal account in Kaspi. I used to call them, oh yeah, sorry. And it's like everybody was talking about this. So cybersecurity is becoming a huge, big new demand. And number 3, the communication and the comm engineers, communication and the infrastructure engineers, because there's a huge amount of data which is generated, and it is growing and growing. There was a huge surge of data generation last year because of pandemic and quarantine measures, and now all the major networks are struggling how to deal with these huge amounts of data sent back and forth. The WhatsApp is lagging, and everybody's really crazy about that. So there's a huge demand of people who can design, it's called CDN, content delivery networks, the smart networks. How do you design algorithms so you can, allocate data, you can operate data, you can store data and deliver it to clients in more resource efficient ways. There's a huge demand for all kinds of engineers and specialists in that field. Education is still, yes, and I'm trying to answer the second question. There's no way the people can be replaced, humans can be replaced in education in at least next 10 to 15 years. There's an interesting research, a very good research done by MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, starting from 60s. They've taken 5 group of professions, and 3 of them, the demand for humans is decreasing in the last 60, 70 years. But there are 2 group of professions where demand for humans is increasing, stable and increasing. One is creative jobs, where you need to reinvent. You always have non-routine jobs, non-routine tasks where you have to creative jobs. The architects, designers, all kinds of jobs where you don't deal with certain procedures and routine tasks, where you always create something new every day. You have new tasks, you have new creative agenda, you have to create and recreate and reinvent something. And second group of professions, the human-to-human, emotional contact professions, where you have to contact emotionally with another human being. The teachers, psychologists, the tutors, healthcare workers, social workers, because it still requires a lot of human involvement to really deal, to pass information, to emotionally engage with another human being. They're not easily replaced. And then the healthcare, it's another big growing demand. All the governments in the world have now realized they lack a lot of medical workers. There's the World Health Organization, WHO, they give a 1.5 million deficit of trained medical professionals. There's a huge demand for epidemiologists, for genetics, microorganism genetics, for the public healthcare specialists. It's becoming one of the top hot professions. Education educators, there's huge demand, huge deficit for trained teachers. And there's, as I mentioned, there'll be new demands for teaching profession. There'll be growing new skill sets like pedagogical designers, the content designers, the constructors of online courses, because to design an online course requires different skill sets. The Coursera, the Udemy, these huge big MOOCs, they're now looking not only for experienced teachers, but also looking for people who can take knowledge and package it into certain, mold it into certain design, so it can be taught online. The gamification experts, if you like games, wow, you're on the top of the game. I mean, you would be in huge demand. Gamification, game practices, it's becoming a big trend. All these big gaming companies, the Sony, Blizzard, they're now into education as well. We're really good in designing games and gamification. We can really suck in our client and keep him in the game. So this is the biggest demand now in education. So gamification is becoming a big demand in education industry. If you like games, go into games and game design and gamification practices. The logistics, the pandemic and quarantine has disrupted the existing logistics schemes. A lot of agriculture products, a lot of products, there's big trade wars between the US and China. It's the existing global trade system as it was seen by World Trade Organizations, this optimistic views of global trade, it's not working anymore. So it's all about the Amazon way, right? The Amazon are like number one in this game. How do you deliver a product, a service to a client in the best possible way in the most resource efficient way, guaranteed, customer satisfaction guaranteed. So the supply chain management is becoming one of the key professions nowadays. You look at this during the pandemic, look at the companies that just boomed. Volt, in Kazakhstan, it's Choco Family, in Rahmet, the delivery companies, the courier companies. They just, what was it, Volt, and there was another one. Geez, I'm not using them that much, but I mean, they just boomed. And one of the top demand profession was just delivery boys, delivery people. You know, a lot of people just survived because of a delivery thing. You know, you would see people with pets, and then they're riding their bikes and cars delivering, and it's becoming it's a sign of changing consumer behavior. And consumer behavior has changed dramatically. A lot of families nowadays, they want to order something online. They don't want to go anywhere anymore. There's a fear economy. There's a new term, fear economy. I don't want to move out, you know, of my castle. I don't want to. The social distancing is becoming, you know, a big thing nowadays. And think of this generation. Think of these children who've been brought up with the pandemic fear. We're brought up with this value of social distancing. Their consumer behavior will be very different from our consumer behavior. They will live up with that consumer behavior. So. So the logistics, supply chain management, warehouse management, customer journey management, the customer relation management are becoming all of a sudden back on the table, back on the scene. They're becoming quite big, and they will be in big demand for quite some time from now on. I couldn't, you know, all of it, but just the immediate things that will be in demand in 5-10 years are this, right? I'm sorry we don't have enough time to go deeper into it. Right.
Yeah, Sayasat, we have just 10 minutes left.
Okay.
So there are some questions related to your project. For example, Bigzat is asking, how did you come involved in the Atlas project? And Aizat is asking, like, what measurement issues did you face in this project, and what did you do to address those issues?
Right. So my involvement in the project, it actually happened long before. I mean, the idea of having a toolkit, it came to my mind about more than 10 years ago. You know, I was in charge of Bolshak program, Bolshak government scholarship program. So we had a big problem, which is still there. We spent a lot of money, trained these young, brilliant professionals abroad in top universities, spending a lot of budget money, bringing them back, and unemployment. And I was the first president of Bolshak who had to deal with systemic unemployment, because back in 2005, you remember when we increased number of scholarships to 3,000, we had hundreds and thousands of these bachelors going off. And when I came to Bolshak in 2009, they were just coming back and pouring back the labor market. And we had first cases of systemic unemployment. So that's first when I came up with this problem. How do we deal with it? Why people who are highly trained, we have these vast degrees with bachelor's and master's, they were not actually, and I did a research of my own, and I quickly found out their skill sets was not exactly matching with demands of local labor market. And it was not only, but one of the key components, that unemployment thing, because I mean, imagine the structure. There's a term coined by Ricardo Hausmann, the famous Harvard professor, the complexity of economy. So the economy of Kazakhstan was not complex enough. It's quite simple. You know, you have the 20 to 30 basic industries, and you have this master degree engineer who's been trained in this top university for a different economy model, for a very different, more complex, very complicated economy model. And when he comes back, his skills are really not in demand. And it's the same tragedy that is happening to Nazarbayev University for the time being nowadays. When you have this highly trained bachelor, there was a good case of a girl I knew. She's top of her class in genetics. she graduated bachelor. She couldn't find a job. I recommended her to Natije, a local company. We produce dairy products, milk and and yogurts and stuff. And they were looking for someone to work on their labs. And she was, oh, we're great, we're happy to employ you. So she first day in the lab, and she has to deal with bacteria. She has to feed the bacteria now. And she says, well, it's not. I didn't even study this. I don't know how to do this, because we were so much advanced in genetics research, and she couldn't work there. And luckily, her supervisor, he went to this Okinawa lab in Japan, and he made her offer, and she's now in Okinawa, very happy, dealing with her genetic splicing, very advanced stuff. And she couldn't find a demand for her particular skills here in Kazakhstan. So that's where the idea came. We said, we really need a toolkit to see how our economy is changing, how industries are changing, which demands, and then we'll have to adjust to these demands. We don't have to spend that much money dealing with this very advanced stuff if we don't have background, if we don't have foundation for it. We have to focus on what is on the table. But we didn't have a toolkit back then. And then I kind of forgot about this because I had different appointments, different jobs. And then my kids grew up. And I had a daughter. She was asking me questions. Well, Dad, it's time we start thinking about university and then applying to which university I should go, which major I should. I said, "Oh shit, you asked me." And I looked back at the labor market. We still don't have that toolkit. I said, "Look, we have to do it." And so we approached. We spent a year dealing with different methodologies, and then we approached the government. And yes, it was not easy because we had a lot of bureaucracy involved. So I spent a year dealing with methodology back in 2019. We were able to push it on president's agenda, newly elect president's agenda. So he made it as his election promise. Then things started rolling, but it took us another year to deal with bureaucracy and fix some funding. So it was co-funded by the Eurasian Resources Group, the largest mining company, and it was co-funded by Ministry of Labor. So it was a co-funded project, and we finally finished it last year. It was just finished December. It's very fresh, very fresh. And now we decided to go on a second stage to have new industries involved, and then to renew it every 2-3 years. The atlas would be renewed to keep it updated to see the changes in demands. So finally, we have a toolkit, a national toolkit to help teachers, parents, high school students, career guidance advisory advisors, the industries, the professional unions, industrial associations, to understand change, to deal with this change. How 8 billion people could find professions if the hard labor is being replaced? Dias Islambayam. It is the biggest question out on the table right now. It's really huge, big issue. And that's why so much talk, so much research done on future skills, future jobs. Because, well, if you take this Oxford research, that famous research done by Oxford, commissioned by UK government to Oxford University, their outcome was quite, outrageous by many. So they predict by 2030, in 10 years' time, in 9 years' time, half of all the jobs on global labor market will be automated. We're talking about more than 2 million jobs, so basically 2 billion jobs, sorry. So about 2 billion people, according to prediction of these people, these researchers, would be replaced, would be out of jobs. So that's how do you deal with that? So that's a big issue. Now, a lot of theories, a lot of hypotheses, a lot of approaches are being discussed. And I was shocked last year when I was summoned to a government working group with the Prime Minister, a lot of cabinet ministers, and we were discussing, it was closed working group, so we were discussing the basic income in Kazakhstan. So several million people, if they don't work, we can't provide them with jobs, we will have to deal with the basic income. And this 42,000 tenges thing that happened as a during the pandemic last year was an experiment. Can our budget afford to pay certain basic income to several 100,000 of our citizens if they don't work, and we won't be able to provide them with work, with jobs? And this is one of the remedies, one of the issues which is being now quite actively discussed in many countries. A lot of countries now doing their calculations to see, can we really afford to help out basic income with no job requirements, no requirements to find a job to millions and maybe billions of people on the globe. Another way of dealing with this is to find, there are all kinds of conspiracy theories. I would recommend you to watch Steven Spielberg's movie called Ready Player One. It's being out 2017, about 3-4 years ago. Just watch that movie. Future, no jobs, billions of people out on the planet, no jobs. They all play game. It's a VR game called, spoiler alert, but it's, so basically they entertain people, they keep them busy, they, make friends, they make money. It's all out there in this virtual reality constructed, very complex world, very complex game. And people are happy, they're doing whatever they do. They watch movies, they make friends, they fight, they kill, they, virtual, of course. They make wars, they make big alliances, teams and clans and stuff like that. And everybody's busy. Could be a good solution to keep everybody busy without actually being busy. So a lot of nobody really knows how to deal with this. It's, a lot of experiments, a lot of thoughts, and you would see there'll be more and more movies and essays and articles and books about this brave new world that we're entering. So like 20-30 years ago, it was like science fiction, but now we're coming inevitably to an abyss, or maybe to new reality. To how do we deal with this? Because the people, humans will be automated. Even in Kazakhstan, it's happening. We could really see it, how many, like you'd see 95 transforming professions and 129 dying professions, more than transforming, right? Dear Sayasat, do you think oil and gas industry will be still relevant in 2035? Yes. Why? Maybe not. The component, the major, there are big shifts in oil and gas, really huge radical changes in oil and gas. There are certain very brave forecasts that, our generation, and I'm 49 years old, our generation would see the end of oil era. And that'll be it. We would see that the oil industry would cease to exist. I'm not that pessimistic, but yes, there will be big changes. Number one, the major consumer of oil and gas industry, the automobile industry, the car industry, the fuel industry, the gasoline, the fuel industry is shrinking. It's changing. It's really changing. There's a consumer behavior change. People, they don't want big cars anymore. They want smaller cars, more efficient cars. They want, people are now more careful and more sound about environment, right? Environmental regulations. And then there's a shift to electric cars. I mean, Elon Musk, he did start a revolution in the automobile industry. You wouldn't find any major car producer who wouldn't have their own hybrid or electromobile project. The UK has officially, the UK Parliament has officially adopted a national strategy to prohibit the combustion cars, the traditional cars, conventional cars. By 2030, there'll be only hybrids allowed, and by 2050, they will go completely electric by 2050. So that's in a lot of countries adopting similar strategies. So we'll see a big change, but oil and gas industry is the automobile industry is not the only consumer. The bigger consumer, in fact, is petrochemicals. So everything we have now, everything we wear, the pen I have, it's all plastic, and the major source of plastics is still carbohydrates. So carbon. So we will have to. It will be shrinking, but still one of the major producers of plastics. Right, but again, plastic industry is a big fight for plastic. Yeah, there's a big fight for in plastic.
Unfortunately, time is flying, and dear Sayasat, there is one more very interesting question from Olga. Do you see that, or shall I read it?
Please read it, because I'm kind of
how you plan to calibrate your research process and findings with the UN's SDG goals. Remember those Sustainable Development Goals. For example, gender equality. Your expert panel has 49 men and 6 women. Was your methodological design gender sensitive? With thanks from Olga, University of Oxford.
Oh, thank you very much for the question. Olga, I think you are referring to expert panel on a website. This is just, several experts. We had more than 2,000 experts involved. I can't really give you, the gender balance of these 2,000 experts, but we really had a lot of women within. I will find the gender balance figures. But why if you look at the panel right away, why it's very disbalanced? There are 2 major reasons. One, and this particular smaller panel we put on a website, we could put all the 2,000 people. But if you go to every industrial atlas, like the tourism atlas, in the end, there's a full list of all the experts involved, and you could see, that, for example, in tourism, there were more women than men. But this 49 particular panel, there are 2 reasons. One, most of them are top officials, like vice ministers, ministers, and unfortunately, in Kazakhstan, there's still this glass door situation. Yes, if you look at the like, for example, the cabinet, you'll have only what? Do we have any women left in the cabinet? Yes, the Minister of Culture and Sport. I think that's it. I think she's Aida Balayeva, Ministry of Information. So we have 2 women. So it's actually reflects, this particular panel reflects the overall situation in Kazakhstan. And because it's hard industries, mining, oil and gas, we found out that most of the chief engineers, the CEOs are still, there's a huge gender gap, there's huge gender imbalance. So because this 49 reflects really the 50 plus smaller panel, it's top management, it's public official, it really reflects the overall situation. But if you look at each industrial, in certain areas, in certain industries, you'd see there were a lot of women involved. But you're right. We didn't actually consider. We didn't have any criteria for gender sensitive approach. We just, we approached as many experts as we could, and we invited all of them. We didn't have any special requirements. We didn't have any quotas or criteria. So that's something we should be looking into. Yeah, you're right. Thank you. Thank you for your question.
I would like to thank all participants who asked questions. Unfortunately, time is flying, and talk is so interesting and so exciting. I just want to share from my personal side that I do follow Mr. Sayasat Nurbek in every social media, and I know that you're very active everywhere. I've been watching several your, direct live discussions on Instagram and Facebook. And there are 2 more interesting questions from our participants. One is like narrowly specialized professions like risk management in finance will be automated by machine, and could you please comment on this? And number 2, what do you think, is there a delay in the trend of disappearing professions in Kazakhstan in contrast to the West?
Yes, let me start with the last question. Yes, there's certain delay. So the waves, the big technology waves that are emerging in many advanced economies, like digital trends, the automation, the AI, the big data, they do arrive to Kazakhstan and local markets with certain delay. But this delay is shrinking now. It's like it used to be 10 to 15 years. So there's a new, let's say, technology emerging, and then it arrives to Kazakhstan and becomes a mainstream. It would take 10 to 15 years, sometimes 5 to 10 years. But now we see there's a, this delay is shrinking. It's much less than it used to be 10 years ago, 5 years ago. And I'll give you an interesting example of this. The movies, the movie industry. Remember when we had like 10 years ago or 15 years ago, a new movie would come out, and then you would, we would watch it, the pirate copies, and then finally when it's released on DVD, you would have a good copies, and you could download it in your torrent pirate networks. But now you would have this big, as before pandemic actually. Now even that situation has changed. Before pandemic, these big studios, they would do the premieres of their big new blockbusters on exact same day throughout. It was global premiere. And the last 5-7 years, you've seen there were the global premieres. So you would be going to in Almaty to a local mega cinema, to big cinema complex, and watch movie, this new Marvel, Avengers movie, at exact same day, and exact same time when you would be watching it in Paris or Tokyo or Los Angeles. So there's no gap. And the big producers, it goes same thing for big industries like software industry or like big platform industries. The SAP, they would put a release and update their platforms everywhere equally. They won't be doing it like US only, and then it'll arriving to Asian markets in 30 days. No way. So there's a big platform, because everything is becoming platforms nowadays. Netflix, you take Netflix, you subscribe to Netflix, you watch whatever it's released equally for everyone. And then of course it's tailored for your region. There's a great book, Netflix Nations. It's huge new idea. It's disrupting everything now. So now the big industries are trying to deliver content equally, deliver news and updates equally in the same time, in real time to everyone. So the platform thinking, the platform industries are becoming big platform. You take what the cinema is another. Now these big studios are dying off because Netflix, HBO, Disney Plus, there's platforms. They're making so much money. You look at the Netflix, the new season 2021, 70 new full-time movies, new premiere every week. I mean, they have so much power now, so much resources. None of the studios, Universal, Warner Brothers, nobody can do what Netflix can do anymore. And for the first time, this year's Oscar ceremony will not be in February, it will be later in April. And for the first time, there'll be movies, online movies, fighting for Oscars. And it might as well be in a few years, there'll be no more like traditional movies. There'll be Netflix against Disney Plus, against HBO, and the Netflix will have more Oscars, than any other studios. Because it's quite interesting. So the gaps are becoming really small. With time, there will be no gaps. There will be like these big networked, platform-based societies, industries. So we really need to speed up. We really need to understand much deeper what our competitive advantage, how do we upskill, how do we move forward, how do we reskill, in which particular industries, like creative industries, will have some competitive advantage. Can we use these big platforms to deliver our content, to make our companies more competitive, to create something unique? And these big platforms, yes, they give huge advantages to owner of the platforms, to Amazons, and they're becoming extra rich. Can you imagine $2.28 trillion market cap of Apple? And it's huge. It's you can't imagine. I mean, GDP of Kazakhstan is it used to be 224 billion US dollars at its peak in 2014. It's now 160 billion dollars. Can you imagine? GDP of a huge country like Kazakhstan is like 100 times less, dozens times less than market cap of a single private company, US company, Apple, $2.28 trillion. So this gap is becoming huge, but on the other side, the platforms give ability to smallest player to smallest member of that platform to boom, become a hit. If they have unique content, Among Us, it's a game. Everybody plays this game. All my kids are playing Among Us. I was introduced to this game about last month. They were playing. What the heck are you doing? You're playing Among Us. What the heck is Among Us? 500 million users last month, and only 4. It's a very small team which designed this game and support this game. 4 people, and they have more clients than all our banks combined, than all our software companies combined in Kazakhstan. So even smallest player can, using the platform, can get to huge audiences, can get huge results, can affect billions of people. WhatsApp, remember WhatsApp? There were 14 people on the team, about 20 people, less than 20 people team when Facebook bought them. They paid 20-something huge money, $1 billion to Jan Koum and his team, right? And it was like less than 20 team, and now it's the most widespread the messenger in history. I mean, they almost hit 2 billion mark. I mean, more like all the people who have smartphones and who have money and who have access to internet, the clients have had a particular messenger software. So really, the gap is closing. We're out of time, and we have to really understand how this new networked platformed future will be, how it will look like. Do we have a competitive advantage in this new brave world? How can we use our competitive advantages to access great audiences, to produce content? And which skills and competencies would be involved to stay competitive and survive in this brave new world? That's the real issues we should be focusing on. And I'm really pissed off that our government is not looking to these issues. We're still, fighting corruption, creating new agencies to fight corruption, creating 3 new agencies. I mean, creating 2 more agencies to fight the corruption and control the to fight the corruption, instead of dealing with new challenges, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Right.
Mr. Sayasat, yeah, we are very sorry. We are running out of time, and we have taken more than 1 hour and 36 minutes. Actually, this is 15 minutes more than we were expecting. We would like to thank you very much for your time and for your participation in the KMAP Global Leadership Forum. And we would like to wish you all the best in your future projects and your future endeavors. And there are so many thank you from our participants. The lecture was very informative, and our participants have really appreciated that a lot. And we really hope
unanswered questions. So I'll go back to you're gonna record. You're gonna put this recording on your YouTube channel, right?
Yes, it is.
I will try to answer all the questions, unanswered questions in your YouTube channel. Right. So don't worry, I will answer all the questions. I'll get to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Great. Bye.
Thank you very much.